block.
No, I'm gonna do it sooner than later. They made me look so much. Giving people like you, and this is me, going to school. Recommend I
Right now.
Oh, my other job?
My brother did 20 years.
Nobody else puts a hold on it. Hello, Chief. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to touch you. Nice seeing
Yeah, I guess we probably should do it.
got it.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Good morning. Great. I want to, first of all, welcome each and every one of you for coming to the city of South Pasadena. I'm so pleased that you're all here. This historic library community room. A bit about this room. It was built in 1907 with a grant from the Andrew Carnegie Foundation, which makes it a Carnegie library. So we're very proud of it. It's in the heart of our city, very close to the gold mine, and a wonderful area to walk around. Hopefully some of you will stay around and do that. And this would have probably not been here had a certain surface route gone through this city. The artwork, I want to point out another fabulous feature of today. The artwork that you see here on these panels are done by South Pasadena school children. It was led by what I understand is they were also very excited to do this for you. The mayors were coming, so they really put in their hearts into it. So please take a moment at some point to walk around and look at their amazing artwork. I'd like to then thank Mayor Eric Garcetti and his team for spearheading this initiative, this convening, and bringing us all together. It is so important that we convene like this from time to time to share information and ideas. We are, after all, primates. We are social creatures, and we actually do need together, engage upon one another, and lift our eyes off of our digital formats to really connect and do what we all need to do to go forward and lead with humanity and love and in a holistic manner. I think very early on when I met Eric, I very early on recognized a kindred spirit in the sort of approach to holistic wellness and healing. So I've always appreciated that his approach to his policy. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce you to my colleagues on the South Pasadena City Council. And I believe they're all here. Councilmember Diana Mahmood, Councilmember Rick Schneider, Mayor Pro Tem Robert Joe, Councilmember Michael Cacciati, and I'd like to also introduce my counterpart on the South Pasadena School Board, Dr. Susie Bajan. And what's really interesting is that this year, where I rotate through the mayor role, Dr. Bajan, who's on the school board, rotates through being the president. And we are both, kind of a unique thing about South Pasadena right now, that we are both immigrants, Armenian heritage, both professional, postgraduate women, and we're both in kind of the parallel positions of the city, so that's kind of cool for us. And let's see, we have also want to introduce our city manager, Stephanie DeWolf, who's here, and our police chief, Joe Ortiz, and our fire chief, Paul Riddle. They make us feel very protected and safe all the time. And our wonderful city staff, I'm not going to go into your names, but you're all wonderful, and we'll recognize you at the end. And with that, we're going to do something kind of interesting and cool to start with at this particular invocation. And again, bringing a little bit of South Pasadena to you all. Like this library, like the artwork. You haven't heard it? Okay. Like the library and the artwork. We started doing what we call art invocations at our city council meetings because we believe arts and music bring people together. They're the kind of common language. They sort of supersede politics and that part of our brain that's thinking, and it allows us to go into different spaces and interact with one another in a different way, which is what this art's doing for me right now. So we sometimes do musical invocations. Sometimes we'll do an artist. So I'm going to. I wanted to have all of you have a taste of that, and so I've invited a colleague of mine and one of our residents, Dr. Jal Sawyer, who's going to do a drum number that he'll talk about as he introduces that. And Dr. Jal Sawyer recently performed at the South Pasadena City Council meeting, and it was very well regarded. People very much enjoyed it. He is the chair of our art commission. He's a newly anointed PhD in educational leadership, I think just last week. And he has done extensive public service in the city of New York and received a recognition for community excellence from the state of California. I am so pleased he's here today. He is a drummer and educator who has built his career through work with Winston Marsalis, D.D. Bridgewater, George Benson, Fishwell and Friends, Bobby Hutcherson, and others. Dr. Sawyer has performed at Carnegie Hall, the Sydney Opera House, the Kennedy Center, and more. You can hear him on over 80 recordings, both as a leader and sideman. He is dedicated to music education and works with music programs in Los Angeles, the Bay Area, New Orleans, and New York, and South Pasadena. Take it away, Jazz.
All right.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Mayor, City Council, City Manager, and welcome mayors, public leaders, and guests. So today we're going to do the arts invocation, and one thing that we want to think about today is Ashe, which is a West African concept from the Yoruba tribe, which means it's a philosophical concept that means to make things happen and achieve prosperity. So I want you guys to think about that. As I call it out, I want you to respond. So Ashe. All right. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do a mayoral public leaders and guests drum circle. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to warm up. Okay, so I'm going to need all of you to put both your hands on your laps. Okay, and we're going to do our single stroke roll, which is the most basic, which is right, left, right, left. Okay, so we'll do it together, slow and fast, okay? Okay, here we go. Ready? We're going to start with the right. Everybody knows the right. Here we go. Concept we're going to learn is call and response. Okay, so I'm going to do a call, a rhythm, and you're going to respond. So don't beat up your legs too bad, okay? Okay, so I'll do the call and you respond. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now I'm just going to keep a little time, and I want you guys to figure out your beat, and that's going to go in our drum circle arrangement. Okay, so I'm just going to play some time together, and you're just going to play a rhythm that comes to you. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. You just do this to it. Now we're going to try a roll, okay? Kind of like what we did really fast. So we're going to do a soft one and a loud one, okay? So a roll is fast as you can, under control. Okay, good luck. Here we go. Start soft and then loud. Okay. Now we are ready for our arrangement. Okay, So we're going to have two call and response. No, we're going to have a roll, two call and responses. We're going to play our beat, and then we're going to have 3 hits all together. I'll say it again. We're going to start with a roll, 2 call and responses. How many? 2. All right. Then we're going to go into our rhythm, and then finally we're going to close with 3 hits all together, which I will keep. Okay?
All right.
Good luck.
Ashe.
Ashe.
All right. Oh, I have, you want the countdown or the Marcus? All right. Okay, we're getting a little help over here. We get that, thank you. Very good. One more. Hey, boss, can you give me a... Okay. Roll, 2 call responses, beat, 3 hits all together.
All right.
Okay, here we go. We're gonna start soft and then loud. Okay? Here's the first call. Second one. Okay, here's our fifth rhythm. 1, 2, all together. Shade.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you're all awake now. Are we all awake? Thank you so much, Jeff. That was wonderful. And thank you to the supervisors for participating and our guests. So just want to keep going for the sake of time. I want to now spend a few minutes introducing, not that it needs introductions, but from my perspective, introduce Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti. And I want to highlight a couple of his accomplishments in office that I believe are very meaningful to future generations in and around Los Angeles and resonate with me. For example, leading the charge to fund a once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-a-generation expansion of our public transportation system, launching the LA College Promise Higher Education Initiative, finding regional solutions to the very difficult challenge of homelessness, which we still struggle with, building private sector partnerships that have led to 350 athletic courts being refurbished throughout the city in support of his vision of free universal sports and fitness programs for youth. Standing up to the Trump administration over the Paris Accord, Mayor Garcetti rallied 400 mayors in cities across the U.S. to adopt the accord after the U.S. pulled out. And as an immigrant myself, I'm very proud of Mayor Garcetti's compassionate approach toward immigration, which contrasts so drastically with the injustices we are seeing currently at our borders. Just a few of his accomplishments, but I think that they've had a very meaningful impact on many of us in this region. And on a personal level, an interesting family connection. I think, Eric, I think you already know this, but my brother-in-law, Dr. Albert Dreskin, used to play tennis quite frequently with Eric's father, Gail Garcetti, back in the 70s in the San Fernando Valley. So there's that. We're also interconnected. With that, let me welcome LA Mayor Garcetti.
Well, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me in the back? Okay, good. Well, welcome to the 17th convening of Los Angeles County Mayors. I always love coming to see my sister and brother mayors, and I look at the supervisors who are both supervisors and mayors because of the unincorporated areas in which they reign over. So it's great to have two supervisors here, and I want to thank Supervisor Barger and Ridley Thomas for being here. Give them a round of applause. Thank you, Marina. Thank you so much from the beginning. You said, we want to host you in South Pasadena. And we always have a ton of mayors who say, I want the next one. We put you in the line. We are so excited to be in South Pasadena, one of the most beautiful cities, one of the most important cities in LA County, and one that we love coming to. And thank you for making this so beautiful, so welcoming. I don't know we've ever drummed before, but we will always have South Pasadena, guys, no matter what happens. So for us in Los Angeles City, we share a border, we share common concerns. Our first responders work hand in hand with each other, working on resolving the 710, the Measure M passage, investing in 21st century infrastructure. We know how close Los Angeles City and South Pasadena are, but we also know how interlinked we all are. And when I became mayor of the city of Los Angeles, really every quarter this is one of the things I look forward to the most. And I want to thank my staff who worked so hard on behalf of all of the cities of the county of Los Angeles to do this convening, to come together on all those issues that ignore borders, from pollution, to economic development, to traffic, to homelessness. These things, we're proud of our borders, but we also acknowledge that the people who live in them often live one place, work in another, play in a third, and that's one of the greatest things. I love coming, whether it's dancing with Ali this weekend at a great celebration of Lebanese culture in the city of Glendale, where we were, or whether it's, we're in Burbank actually, sorry. My apologies, but we love Glendale too. And whether it's seeing each other socially, whether it's working on some of the toughest issues, we have some great things that we're working on. So thank you as well to all of the South Pasadena family for making this happen, especially Tamara Binns for really the hard work she did to make this happen. Give her a round of applause. And also, for anybody who's new there you are. Thanks, Tamara. Gail Koretz, who's right there. Gail, wave to everybody. Is here to share with you as well. Thank you for you and your team's work and this beautiful library room. The Carnegie libraries are incredible. How many people have a Carnegie library in their city? Anybody else? We have some, so 3 or 4. They really were an extraordinary outpouring of civic generosity at a moment in our nation's history when literacy was not as universal as it is today. And the legacy of them shows what happens when we have these sort of public-private partnerships together. I also want to thank, speaking of that, Sean Fay and his team for opening up their doors here from South Pasadena. Remember, our hashtag over here is hashtag LA County Mayors, so don't forget to use it. Let your constituents know you're meeting with fellow mayors and council members and supervisors from around the county. And know too that this is a great place for us to always, if you have a topic suggested to us, if you're interested in hosting, let us know. We do want to at least culminate at some point in that meeting everybody wants to have in Avalon. We got to get that's one of the nice county cities, so we will get there. I remember we all said none of us are an island, and the mayor of Avalon said, actually, technically we are. So, the California dream has always been a kind of brave and bold expression of our hopes and of the future. I was talking to a pollster a couple of years ago who said, you know, I've polled this entire country, and in no other state do they say the state name and then the dream, except in California. It's not to say that Kansas doesn't have dreams or Florida doesn't have a dream, but it said that isn't used. They don't say the Florida dream, the Kansas dream, the Texas dream. But in California, just like the American dream, he said uniquely so, is something not only Californians know, but all Americans and even people outside of the United States have an idea of what the California dream is. It was a land kind of limitless opportunities, a place with good schools, plentiful jobs, affordable housing, a decent commute. Well, 1.5 of those still remain, but our work on 2.5 of those to make sure that we can spend less time in our cars and more time with our families, that we can address our affordability crisis with housing, and keep our public education moving forward is absolutely critical. And this has always been a place I think, of belonging. One thing defines Los Angeles is that I know a lot of people like diversity and inclusion. Those words are okay for me, but diverse could be a buffet. Inclusion implies that I'm including you because I have the power. But belonging to me has always been a much more powerful word because it puts everybody on an even playing field, even ground. And it's an amazing place, a place where our first head of the Chamber of Commerce and one of the first city council presidents was Jewish, a place where a free slave like Biddy Mason could come here and become, in modern terms, a multi-millionaire and landowner in her own lifetime, going from being a slave to one of the richest people in the city of Los Angeles in the mid-1800s. And it's also been a place of innovation. From Silicon Beach to Silicon Valley, California has always innovated. But we see that here today. In fact, I just got a tour of the Lucas Museum, which is, just to put it in perspective, like building a mid-sized aircraft carrier in the middle of Exposition Park. The largest, we're talking about the Carnegie's, largest single family gift for a museum in US history. And I was touring that with George Lucas, and he said, it's gonna be amazing when kids come to our museum and look at our Star Wars paraphernalia and look at how we imagine going into space, and they can actually walk just a few hundred yards to the California Science Center and see the Space Shuttle Endeavour stacked up with the rockets and see how we actually did it. To know that they are across the street from where I learned at USC my craft, but also where Neil Armstrong went as an engineer and became the first man to step on the moon. So this idea of freedom, this idea of belonging, and this idea of innovation, I think, defines who we are. And that's kind of what we're all fighting to protect. Which brings us to today's topics. We, as mayors and council members and supervisors, our first responsibility is protecting life. Protecting the life of our people. And it's not, well, I can't say it because I know there's some press here. Well, I've been very active in a group called C40. I've been a vice chair and pursuing the chairmanship of it, which is a group of global cities, the 94 kind of biggest cities in the world. Mayor Bloomberg helped found it. It was founded by a group of cities and a group of mayors, now responsible for 25% of the world's GDP. We're going to be meeting in a couple weeks in Copenhagen, and I'll be there with the mayors of Shanghai, New York, Mexico City, and Paris, and folks who are confronting that we all now have an even tougher job protecting our people in the face of climate change. And resilience, which is something that catches everything from the earthquakes that have existed long before we started putting carbon into the air, or what we're doing to see our firefighters who are now responding to fires that are licking the edges of this county and the city and going into it, that have devastated cities like Calabasas and Malibu, or whether it's looking at the impact of cities like Houston during the climate strike. Students in Houston couldn't even go strike because they were so underwater from yet another once-in-a-lifetime storm happening in Houston. So the work that we have to do to protect, from Manhattan Beach to Montebello, from Walnut to West Covina, our people, in the 88 cities and the unincorporated areas of the county, we know that these are common threats to each one of us. And we've seen it happen. We've seen our regional cooperation address some of the toughest or some of the most exciting challenges and opportunities that we have. Whether it's bringing the Olympics and Paralympic Games here, which will be in multiple cities around us, from Carson to Long Beach, City of Los Angeles, etc., or regional cooperation around our transportation network, and both the supervisors serve with me on Metro, but this really will be the largest physical change in our lifetimes to Los Angeles, when 15 rapid transit lines are built throughout our county. But it's also how we're going to make sure that our children inherit a region that isn't smoked with smog and pollution, even if we have sometimes, and this is a nonpartisan group, but a president who literally wants us to go backwards on our air quality controls. When we come together, we know how strong we are. So with that, let me welcome our two guests that are here from the county, and then we're going to leap into the topics that we're talking about today. Before they come up, though, I want to just do quick introductions. So if you are a new mayor first, will you stand up if you've never been to, or a mayor who's never come to one of these meetings? And why don't you just introduce yourselves to everybody, tell us who you are and where you're the mayor.
Hello, I'm Nancy Hertzman. I'm the new mayor of the city of Manhattan Beach.
Awesome. Okay.
My name is Adele Andrade Statler, and I'm the mayor of Alhambra.
I'm Linda Northrup, and I'm the mayor of Agora Hills.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Corey Moss, and I am the mayor of City of Industry.
All right. And we'll have everybody introduce themselves after the supervisors too.
Yeah, really quick. West Covina Mayor Pro Tem. I've been mayor in November. This is my first time over here. It's my honor to be here.
Awesome. Actually, why don't we keep the microphone? Let's go around to the supervisors now. Why don't we do this table? We'll just pass it around. We want the new mayors first. Welcome, new mayors. Remember what we all say to the new mayors in the handshake, you guys? We'll introduce you guys then. You want them to go first? Okay, all right. Time. Mark Ridley Thomas has been a friend. He has been a colleague. We served on the city council together. He has been a leader in the fight to end homelessness in Los Angeles. We are so grateful for him, for his leadership, from public transportation to housing, and he has done a superb job not only representing his district, but this entire county. Please welcome Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, if you agree with me, why don't we give our convening mayor and our host mayor a big round of applause. I'm pleased to be here this morning with my colleague, Catherine Barger, who will share insights following me. I simply wish to offer these thoughts for your consideration. The theme today, I've been told, is part that of resilience. And I believe that that's a concept that emanates from, in many respects, the social sciences, but is applicable to a wide variety of disciplines. And I wish to offer this particular perspective. When we think about resilience, we may connect that to the issue of infrastructure, and we understand that that's important. Reference has already been made to one illustration of infrastructure, and that is the physical landscape of this region, the county of Los Angeles, and all 88 cities therein. We think about the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. We think about the huge investment that the people of this region have made in making sure that public transportation is regional, rational, it's equitable, and that it does what it needs to do for all of us. Huge investment, infrastructure. I also think about infrastructure when I think about parks. I think of that in terms of environmental infrastructure. It's important because it leads to a level of resilience of families. I think it's also important to think about economic infrastructure and resilience. I think about bioscience. I think about biotech. Why? Because the only industry that defied the dip of the Great Recession was that industry, and it came back and is roaring. And Pasadena, this whole community, is an example of that, as well as other cities throughout the county of Los Angeles. These are all illustrations of resilience, I believe. The infrastructure that I think of most often is the human infrastructure of our region. When I think of those terms, I have to think about the issue of homelessness. Those people who are yet subjected to unspeakable conditions to which they are relegated need our investments. They need our sense of what it means to be fully human all over again. And if we want to soar, if we want to appreciate, capture our sense of resilience in a real sense, it seems to me our investment in that regard has to be real and it has to be now. The matter is urgent, it's undeniable. Many of us know it, many of us work on it. We will continue to do that. Why? Because we know that it affects us directly, not only politically, not only professionally, but personally and directly. So we can think of natural disasters and the like. That's a human disaster of some consequence. It seems to me that all of us can do what we need to do to make that better for our region, for our community, for future generations to whom we owe our best. Well, to me, the notion of empowerment is translatable to that of resilience. If we invest, we'll get good things. That's the infrastructure that makes a difference in the final analysis. thought when Mayor Garcetti was speaking and asking everybody to go around and say what they had to say, he was going to ask us to extend to each other the right hand of fellowship, but that's another venue in which that takes place. I simply conclude by saying, Ashe.
Thank you so much, Supervisor. Next, I'd like Catherine Barger, who is an extraordinary person as well, came up from her work inside the county, one of the most knowledgeable, one of the most loving, one of the most bright and enjoyable people I've worked with in public office. And this is her district, so we're so pleased to have her here. Please welcome Supervisor Catherine Barger.
Well, good morning. No, we're not going to use this.
Testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
I have 3 brothers. I can yell.
Sorry.
Got it. Is that it? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, Mayor Garcetti, thank you. When you took office, one of the commitments you made was, while you are the largest city of the 88 cities in the county, you made it a priority to bring all the cities together. And this truly is refreshing, especially in a time when we all are looking out for our own cities. It's important for us all to share how we are working together to make LA County a better place. And so I want to thank you, Mayor Garcetti, for your vision and bringing everyone together. So let's give you a big round of applause. I also want to acknowledge the city of South Pass. Mayor, thank you, and thank the city council. You all truly are engaged in not only what's great for South Pass, but entirely what is good for the county, especially when it comes to the environment, working on the energy issues that we're working on. I want to thank you for hosting us today. So let's give you a round of applause. So I'd like to say we face a lot of the same concerns and priorities as we look around this room. We talk about the issues, and one thing that really we all have in common is ensuring that our neighborhoods are safe and healthy. And when you talk about what's going on in Washington, what I tell people is we don't need back east to tell us how to do it here in LA County. When it comes to the issues of the environment, we've been on the forefront. LA County is looking at renewable energy. When it comes to dealing with transportation, you only have to look a couple blocks away, or actually less than a block away, to look at the ability to get here on the Gold Line so you can leave your car at home. And when it comes to the homeless, we are working together collaboratively. What I tell people is in LA County, when you look at Measure H dollars, we are all about making sure that that money gets out into the communities, because what is right in Laverne is not going to match what is necessary in Santa Clarita, and what is going on downtown Los Angeles is entirely different than what we're doing here in South Pass. So it's important for us to have the flexibility, use best practices, but allow each and every city to do what they feel is necessary. And I look to Mayor Tornick. Pasadena is one of the few cities where actually the homeless count numbers went down. I believe it is because I believe it is in part because the city took the time to educate not the homeless, but the people that live in the city, to let them know that the individuals are currently living there. Do we provide support and housing for them so that they can get off the street and actually live a prosperous life, or do we continue to fight and allow status quo to go on? And I argue that we need to do more, and that's why I've been proud to work with Mayor Garcetti and all of our cities to make that happen. On to some happy things. I mean, we talk about the homeless crisis, let's talk about transportation. We have an exciting vote tomorrow as it relates to the 710 freeway, which right now we are in ground zero for where the 710 debate started. It's been an honor to work with all of my cities, Alhambra, San Gabriel, San Marino, South Pass, Pasadena, to work toward addressing how we are going to move forward beyond the 710. And I make this commitment to you. We are all, and where's Mayor Khubestrian? We are all on board as it relates to collaborating and ensuring that those dollars get back into the community, and that we get mobility going, and that we do what's right for our constituents, and that includes bike paths, which I know is near and dear to the city of South Pasadena. I'm going to leave you with this, and for those of you that know my style, this truly is a quote that rings true to me. President Truman said, "It's amazing what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit." I always tell people, let us make that our mission, to work together, just because cheering for one another to succeed is the right recipe, and ultimately the outcome benefits all. Whether we're providing mental health, which is my passion, fixing roads, or advocating for local economies, I'm grateful for the opportunity to support you all. Whether you're in the 5th District or not, we are all in this together. And I have to say, in closing, Dr. Lucy Jones, I am a groupie. When I know the pharmacy you shop at. Well, that I know we do meet. That's yeah. When you get older, you do meet people at the pharmacy. But all kidding aside, I'm excited. You are a hidden gem. Not so much anymore with all the earthquakes, but we are so grateful to have you. Also, as part of the 5th District. Coming from Pasadena, but Caltech, JPL, Mayor Garcetti, again, thank you for your vision. We've got a lot of work to do, but looking around this room, I know we've got the best of the best here, and we're going to get it done. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Supervisor. And Lucy, if you need any protective measures or stalking that you get from the supervisor, just let us know. We're more than happy. So why don't we do the rest of the introductions real quick? So where's the microphone at? You want to pick a table? We'll start over here. Why don't the rest of the mayors who are not new mayors introduce themselves?
Hello, everyone. Nanette Fish, Mayor, City of Temple City.
Michael Alwas, Mayor Pro Tem, City of Glendora.
Jason Wu, Mayor of the City of San Gabriel.
Joel Fajardo, Mayor of the City of San Fernando.
Good morning, Marcia McLean, Mayor, City of Santa Clarita.
Good morning, Kenny Koch, Mayor of Palos Verdes Estates.
Good morning, John Kerchak, Mayor Pro Tem, Rancho Palos Verdes.
Good morning, Pat Wilson, Council Member, City of Rolling Hills.
Good morning, Drew Boyles, Mayor of City of El Segundo.
Hello, I'm Terry Tornick, Mayor of North-South Pasadena.
Lauren Woods, Mayor for the City of Signal Hill.
Good morning, Edith Gonzalez, representing LA County Supervisor Jose Solis.
Good morning, John Harabedian, Mayor of South Pasadena Junior, Sierra Madre.
Good morning, Ned Davis, Mayor of the City of Westlake Village.
Ali Saleh, Mayor of the City of Bell, and Mayor Garcetti's dancing instructor.
Good morning, Albert Robles, Mayor of the great city of Carson.
Good morning, Ricardo Lara, Mayor Pro Tem of Maywood.
Good morning, Corey Kalakai, Mayor of the City of Claremont.
Good morning. I'm Lori Guillen from the city that also starts with P, Paramount.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Rita Olmos, also representing the great city of Paramount.
Hi, I'm Dwayne Davis from the mayor of the city of Santa Monica.
Good morning, Megan Sally Wells, Mayor of Culver City.
Good morning, Gloria Olmos, Mayor of South El Monte.
Thank you for hosting us again. We had a great time in South El Monte. Didn't we? Give another round of applause.
Sam Groza, Public Affairs Manager for the City of Industry. I'm between two Corys, Mayor Corey Kalakai from Claremont and Corey from Industry.
Nice.
Good morning, I'm Mara Najarian from the City of Glendale, Mayor.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Emily Gabeletti, the mayor of Burbank.
Good morning, John Fasano, still Councilmember Duarte.
Thank you, right
Still? That we got all? Okay, we're all good. All right. So let me give you an overview of what we're going to do. So you've heard resilience is the theme. We had a wake-up call, obviously. I was going to have my first day off of the year on July 4th. And so I took my daughter to the movies, Universal City, when boom, things started shaking. And I said, what happened? Because we were getting out of the car, I didn't feel it. And suddenly I was working all day long. Then I was like, don't worry, at least July 5th I'll have my first day off. And an even bigger earthquake, which I did feel while seeing my oldest friend in the world perform in a play at the Geffen Theater in Westwood, which stopped the play, had everybody actually, for a moment, look around. The lights came up, the actors didn't do anything. Then we were calm and the play resumed. So we know that it was at least a close call, but a wake-up call for all of us. So we are so excited to have my dear friend, Dr. Lucy Jones here to talk about the recent Ridgecrest earthquakes, the impacts throughout the county, and how we move forward together. Second, we're going to, after a quick break, turn to Lauren Markle, who is the Senior Director of Communications for the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation. Raise your hand if you're a mayor who doesn't know what the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation is. Good. So we all know LAEDC is there for all of us in the county. They are kind of our voice and our marketing arm for investing in LA County. Which, by the way, quick little stats if you want to use this. Last year, Los Angeles metro area, so that's not just even the county, that's all the continuous city of about, depending how you count it, 14 to 18 million people, is now the third largest gross municipal product, gross metropolitan product, so third largest city economically in the world. It's Tokyo's number one, about 2 trillion, New York's 1.1 trillion, we're about 1.05 trillion dollars of an economy now. So if you ever want to talk about, your city is now part of the third largest city economy in the world. Second stat, the Schroeder's Global Index, which ranks every city in the world for investment, economic prosperity, ranked Los Angeles number one in the world for the second year in a row over Tokyo, Singapore, Hong Kong, London, every city. We're number one in the world. And the third thing is we have grown more. The LA area has added wealth, income growth, labor force participation faster than our other peer 5 cities, biggest cities in the country, New York, Houston, Philadelphia, and Chicago, and outpaced the United States. So anyway, just a couple economic facts there, but that's through all of your data. So we will hear from Lauren, who's going to be talking about business resilience and how we can ensure that our region's economic engine continues to turn in the face of adversity, from what happened when earthquakes happened to what we're doing with climate change. And then we'll come back to our host mayor, and Mayor Khubestrian will be able to provide remarks on the importance of employee wellness in local government. We all have amazing constituents. Many of my workers live in your cities and vice versa. So what we can do as managers to improve and really lead the way for the region for employee wellness. And then we'll close it out, have our traditional group photo, and have some parting words. So again, thank you to all the council members from South Pasadena, all the staff from South Pasadena for updating us. As always, I do a couple quick updates at the outset, so let me just do those as well before we roll into the first presentation. So one of the things that you've seen cities around the country talk about is cybersecurity. You've seen hacks that have shut down Baltimore, shut down Atlanta. How many of you have had a serious cyber intrusion of some sort that cut down some of the operations of your city? So a couple. We now are counting in LA City, just our city computers, not the people of LA City, but the city government, close to 1 billion attacks a year. That's with a B, 1 billion attacks a year. So we just recently convened, thanks to a grant we got from the Department of Homeland Security, a cybersecurity conference, and I want to talk to you a little bit. You might have heard in July, LAPD's personnel records were attacked in a cyber attack. As I mentioned, the other cities that we've seen, all our enemies share information. People who are hackers share this information with each other. But in the past, we've been very shy about doing that. There's been a lot of shame around cyber attacks. Sony gets attacked in Culver City. The other studios go whoosh. Sony doesn't want to share what happened. They don't want to know because they're worried about trade secrets and other things. cities get attacked, we kind of say, wow, I'm so glad that wasn't me. But we have to be as collaborative and cooperative and share as much information as quickly as possible as those who seek to attack us as well. So our adversaries have been able to exploit that division, and we wanted to solve it. So we now have some of the most important infrastructure for America. Shut down the Port of LA. We had a huge attack on one of our terminals and one of the companies in our terminal, Maersk, a couple years ago, and shut down their operations for a day. That was tens of billions of dollars to the global economy. And imagine if that port shut down and 1 out of 9 jobs in the region, depends on the ports of LA and Long Beach, 1 out of 50 jobs in America. Imagine if LAX got shut down, what it would mean for your cities and people coming in and out, investors and others. Our water and power lines, as you'll hear from Dr. McCoy, cross many important places, including state lines, and if they're attacked in one place, that could mean we don't have water and power. So we want a shared solution for everybody. So what we're looking at right now is something called a cyber lab that we've stood up in the city of LA, but we invite all the cities of LA County to be a part of it. What it does simply is it shares real-time threats and pushes out to any business, from the smallest mom and pop that can't really afford to have expensive cyber defenses, to the biggest corporations that are in this region. Instantaneous fixes and assessments so that people can send in intrusion attempts to the professionals of the cyber lab who can assess them right away. So we launched what's called a threat intelligence sharing platform. It's a simple system any business can plug into, and we'll send you all information so you can push that out in the county. It's a really great resource. We're the first city in the country to do this, and the first, hopefully, county and region in the country to have this as well. So it's essentially a digital shield around all of our cities and our region. And as I mentioned, the $3 million grant from the Department of Homeland Security brought some of our biggest corporations together and other entities as well. And so we've created the first of its kind, also public platform to collect cyber threats as well. So data can be shared anonymously. You can send things in without people, knowing that it comes from your company, whatever. But we also will generate regular threat reports to the entire region. It's estimated that there will be something like about $10 billion of ransomware in the world this year, and that number will just go up. That's what will be paid out in the world this year. So through the app that we've now launched as well, you can do it straight from people's phones, you can do it straight from your laptops as well, and your desktops. So we'll analyze information, it'll report the risk severity back to you if you don't know and you're kind of worried about what it is, and give individuals and businesses a bird's-eye view of active threats. So if you go to lacyberlab.org, and we'll push this all out to you as well, take a look at the Tools for LA Business tab, and please have your local businesses sign up and participate in this as well. There's also an app now available for Android and Apple phones, so just go and search LA Cyber Lab in the App Store or on Google Play as well. So with that, let me turn over to somebody it was so honored when I came into office, Dr. Lucy Jones and John Borey, who's here as well someplace. I think he was here. Is John still here? There he is, back there. Came and visited me in the office, and they said, "Did you know there's earthquakes in LA, Mr. Mayor?" And I said, "I've heard that before." And they said, "Do you want to be a mayor who did something about it, or just one who hoped nothing bad would happen?" And I hesitated for a moment, but I said, "Oh shucks, you got me. I want to be the first." And we are able to have a historic agreement between our federal government and our local government, where Dr. Lucy Jones from USGS at the time, Department of Interior, was able to be detailed to the Los Angeles City Hall 4 days a week while she helped us look at resilience and looked in particular at some of the building types that had collapsed in the 71 earthquake and the 1994 earthquakes that we had here in the Southland, to look at everything from the water and power lines, resilience, to shared bandwidth for our multiple cell phone companies in an emergency. And LA put what was then the strongest kind of plan together, Resilience by Design, to help protect lives and to be able to protect our infrastructure and our cities. We also built on that work, and as many of you know and hopefully have downloaded, we talked about it in the mayor's convening, the Shake Alert app, which has been downloaded 800,000 times. In the world, it was like the number 12 app for like a long period of time. I encourage everyone to install it now. I know many of you wrote me after the Ridgecrest earthquake when you heard we were lowering the threshold. It's a kind of controversy back and forth. We had it high enough that it only alerts you when it's going to be serious damage. There wasn't serious damage from Ridgecrest. Everybody said, how come I didn't get an alert? Because I think they wanted to just be able to say, hey dude, like, so the earthquake's coming in 30 seconds. But we also don't want people to panic when they get that. So we're going to, we've lowered that threshold of the Shake Alert app, but also we're writing it so that people know it's not a serious earthquake or an alert for a serious one, so they don't veer off the road or do something dangerous in a movie theater, etc. But these are some of the examples of how LA continues to lead as a region when it comes to earthquake resilience and work. I encourage you to go back. We talked about it in this group. If you still haven't passed an ordinance for retrofitting of your building types that will collapse and kill your constituents. I know it's politically difficult sometimes to tell building owners they're going to have to do that, but trust me, you don't want to be the mayor who looks back after that earthquake and said, I could have done something and saved those lives. So we are so excited to have Lucy here, and I'm going to invite her to come up and talk to us about Ridgecrest.
I could also talk for a really long time on a lot of topics. Getting this down to 20 minutes was a challenge. So I thought what I would do is try and focus on what Ridgecrest means for us. Right? And I've got a few points that will come out of this. I'll start with telling you what I'm going to say, then I'm going to say it, and then we'll look what I said. And this is really around the questions that people were asking after the earthquake, especially in this area. A lot of people were talking about the ability of, what does Ridgecrest mean for us? Does it mean we're going to be having more earthquakes? So there's one question, is it going to trigger earthquakes here? That one's easy. I can actually give you a flat no. I'll explain why. Does this represent a time that things are changing? You guys may not think so, but the last 20 years has been the quietest time in LA history, right? By a long shot. And there was like, the last, 2/3 of my career at the U.S. Geological Survey, I sat here without any good earthquakes. So I'm probably the only one who thinks it was a loss, but, data. And the question is this change? This was our largest earthquakes in 20 years. Are we going to go back to the time like we used to have when there's a magnitude 6 in Southern California about once every 3 years? Unfortunately, the answer is maybe we don't have enough data yet. Can we use this to know more about what's going to happen to us? That's an absolute yes, and I'm going to bring up a couple of things about the earthquakes that you should think about for you. Last, if we have time to get to it, is sort of an interesting thing about mapped faults, right? We trust the geologists to go tell us where the faults are. It turns out when you really get a big earthquake going, it can be bigger than there's a lot more strands that got going. The geologists are still arguing right now about what part of it we call which fault, so there's a perhaps. But to go back to the beginning, I want to remind you what's an earthquake, right? The earthquake is the sudden slip of one block of rock past another that produces shaking as one of its effects. At least that's the way a geologist talks about it. Right? To just about everybody else, the earthquake's the shaking that you feel, so there's sort of been a disconnect in communication all the way along. But the fundamental is the movement of a fault, and that picture that you're seeing there is the largest offset that we mapped from the Ridgecrest earthquake. Those two geologists are sitting at the same edge of an old lake bed, right? So you see that white? That's the deposits from where water evaporated and left salts behind. Those two lines used to line up. They're now 13 feet apart. That's what happened during the earthquake, is that movement of the fault. And it happens over a pretty long area. Somebody put this together. I'm really impressed with this. They got before and after pictures, aerial photos of the area. So you can see how it moved in the earthquake. And you see that it happens over a pretty long distance. It doesn't actually move all at once like this. It's like a zipper going down the fault, but the zipper moves at 2 miles per second, so you probably aren't seeing it go past, at least on this scale. Okay? This is a map of where the aftershocks have happened for this earthquake, and the black lines are places where we mapped faults at the surface that broke, like those pictures that you're seeing. So number one, you might notice the scale in the bottom. This is about 50 kilometers long. That's about 30 miles. Right? The fault itself is a little bit shorter than that, maybe 25 miles. Also notice the cross fault to it. That's actually the 6.4, and then the 7.1 is on that perpendicular structure. So several things to notice with this. Bigger faults produce bigger earthquakes. Every point on the fault gives off shaking, so the longer the rupture, the bigger the earthquake. We think about it. I don't know how many of you, since since we're sitting here in South Pasadena, remember the 1987 Whittier Narrows earthquake. 5.9 actually did probably the most damaging earthquake for South Pasadena because it's so nearby. But that fault was about 2 miles across because it's only a 5.9. Right? Northridge was about 10 miles across. This one's about 30. Okay? So the bigger the earthquake, the more of us get affected. The other thing, obviously, they trigger each other. You know, every time we have an earthquake, we get up there and say, you know, about 1 in 20 times, the aftershock will get bigger than the main shock, and we'll change the name and call the first one a foreshock. Well, here was our 1 in 20. We actually had it happen, right? After we spent the whole day on the 4th saying that, and then on the 5th, which I actually missed the 5th because we were walking, and it's not such strong shaking. If you're walking, we actually didn't feel it. Somebody called us from Caltech, there's been another big earthquake! And we had just gotten a page on a 4.8. So we said, yeah, we saw a 4.8. No, my house is still moving. So we ran back to the house because we were like 5 blocks away to pick up computers and get into work. Here's what the process is. At all times, we have some background probability of having an earthquake. Then we do have an earthquake, and the probability jumps up. But most of the time, it drops back down, and we just trigger small ones. Right? Then imagine another one hits, and this time it does trigger an even bigger one, and then we have an even bigger jump in probability, right? So it's this continuing process, and it works out that about half of the earthquakes in California are considered aftershocks of some other earthquake. The other one, another question I get a lot, was this an earthquake or an aftershock? An aftershock's just one that had its time changed by some other earthquake. It's still an earthquake. It doesn't change its probability of triggering even another one, right? And a lot of people I think are asking, is it an aftershock? Because they think then it's okay. Then it's not going to be a foreshock. Then I don't have to worry about it. Sorry, earthquakes are earthquakes. Every one of them can trigger another, and we get this ongoing process. So if we come back and look at it for Ridgecrest, notice on the, let's see, turn this myself around. On your left, yes. There's the earthquakes that happened between the time of the 6.4, or actually there were some foreshocks to the 6.4 too. These are the earthquakes that happened before the 7.1, and then on the right are the earthquakes over the next couple of weeks. So notice that actually that first one, the 6.4 was on that northeast striking fault, but it also was starting to set off earthquakes on the northwest fault. And it set it off at a rate that we were actually saying, you know, we basically say 1 in 20. The morning of the 5th, we were saying 1 in 10 because there were so many triggered earthquakes, the aftershock rate was high enough. They were saying this is a more active sequence and that increases the chances of getting something more. By the way, the USGS now puts out an automated estimate of the probability of triggering aftershocks. It's on the event page for all of these significant earthquakes. I'll be really candid and say it's work that I did back in 1989, but they finally got around to putting it out in an automatic system. I mean, they used to depend on me to say it, and now I'm gone. So it's all automated now. But the probabilities are there. And you could have gone and looked on the morning and said, now, would you look at this and say 9%? Oh, that means something different, right? In fact, that was about 3 times higher than it would have been compared to the average sequence. All right. But triggering earthquakes for us, right? So here's a bigger picture. These are all the earthquakes. By the way, when you think when I say we don't have enough earthquakes, this is the earthquakes over the last 30 years. No, more like 30. It's since 1981. Right? It's approaching 1 million events at this point. That's in our catalog, right? And you can see a lot of cool things. You can see existing faults, like the San Jacinto fault, which is some of these big northwest striking features and below. You can see the aftershock zones of like Landers and Hector Mine. And now up here in the corner, the orange ones up there are the ones that have happened here in the last couple of months. I put a blue line on them. I'm wondering, and I realized I didn't bring this hard to point. There's a blue line sitting on top of the Ridgecrest earthquakes to show you the length of the fault. Now remember, the length of the fault depends on the magnitude. It also controls its ability to trigger another earthquake. And we have discovered just by looking, look, most of them are really near that fault. say if it's within one fault length of the fault. So this fault, about 40 kilometers long, put a 40-kilometer circle or ellipse around. If you're within 40 kilometers of any point on that fault, we're going to use the name aftershock. That's where almost all of them happen. We sometimes see triggering out to about 3 fault lengths. That's about here. So for that first couple of days, we could have said we have something out there, but it's not just it's a decay with distance. So you can see the San Andreas was right at the very edge. Basically, we think, maybe slight chance we might have made a little bit of difference, but really not because it was just too far away. LA County is absolutely gone. Is Lancaster or Palmdale here? You were barely within the realm. Rest of us were well without it. Right? So that's true of all earthquakes. When there's a magnitude 9 in Japan and people go, oh, ring of fire, we're going to have something, right? No, we are not within 3 fault lengths, even for a 1,000-kilometer long fault. That gets you out to, very western edge of Alaska. So don't worry about triggering more than this distance. Right. So that's back to this question, triggering of earthquakes? Absolutely not. Do we have a change in rate? This becomes how you do it, and this is where we just don't have enough data. Here are the biggest earthquakes for the last century, but this is the whole California border. The ones in pink are before we had so much data, right? So we don't know what the 5s were back then. We really can't say what the total picture was, right? Since the 70s, we have a lot more data. After Kern County and after Landers, the rates go down. The very biggest earthquakes appear to release energy. You're going to see magnitude 6s within that last 20 years because it's going down into Baja California, and it's including all of Northern California. So if you took just Southern California, there's no magnitude 6s between 1999 and 2019. So that's anomalous. It's not our long-term rate. Have we jumped back out? The problem is we have to wait and see. Right? We just don't have enough data to do the statistics. I can say the rate that lowered after Landers was statistically significant. Have we turned back up yet? It's marginal, we're starting to look like it, but it'll need enough data. What that means is you have been thinking that what you've experienced is what you're going to experience. No. Maybe we'll be lucky and we'll stay quiet for another decade. It's looking like we're moving back out of it. So you guys have all gotten a break. After Whittier, Whittier narrows to Northridge, we had all those damaging earthquakes. We also got a lot of attention on earthquakes. And then they all went away. 25 years is forever in your terms. It's a drop in the bucket in my terms. Right?
You got a pointer for you if you want.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I don't know how to talk without pictures or without pointing. Welcome to scientists, right? This is just the bottom line. We can't say for certain the rate's back up, but it's looking like it's going there. You guys have gotten a 25-year break since Northridge. Some of us have been able to make use of it. And I'm really proud of what happened with Los Angeles. I'm really proud that so many other cities are taking this up and looking at it. Pasadena's moving forward. I've been noticed that the condo that I own for my son is going to have to go through mandatory retrofitting, and I'm glad of it. Right? All right, so a change in rate for Southern California, maybe. But let me also take this minute now to say, what can we learn about it in terms of what it means for us? So here's another one of these cool pictures showing how things break. Look at those roads. Those roads are going to be breaking. Right? Think about pipelines. They're going to be breaking. And the other point is that the worst shaking is right where. By the way, I think you can find these on the web if you go and look for them, look for a GIF. I pulled it off Twitter, but then I follow people like that. So there's one thing is about handling infrastructure that crosses these roads. And one thing I'm really glad to say is that because of the work with Shakeout and then with the mayor's effort after Resilience by Design We've been in communication with Southern California Edison, with the gas company, and some of the structures we think that are across the fault that we know exactly where they're going to break are getting retrofitted. So that's really exciting, and that's a very, very big change. The other point I wanted to make, let's go back to this picture and think about that let's see. There, I put that line up there, right? Here's the one that I actually animated. Think about that fault length. Now let's compare it to the San Andreas fault, okay? The San Andreas is much larger. That's why we say it's going to have a magnitude 8, or 7.8 when 200 miles, 300 kilometers break at the same time. The damage is right along the fault. You heard, I mean, China Lake has $5 billion in damage. Ridgecrest had relatively minor damage. It was intensity 8 shaking. It was the same as the worst in Whittier Narrows over there in Ridgecrest. It was substantially worse on the base because they were right against it. Now imagine we went and put this on the Newport Inglewood Fault. Right? Beverly Hills and Rancho Palos Verdes are going to be on top of the earthquake. They're going to be like China Lake. And everything in between, and Long Beach, and a whole chunk of Los Angeles, and Santa Monica, and Culver City. We'd all be right on top of it, getting much worse shaking than Ridgecrest. So when we plan, number one, yes, plan. The fact that your buildings haven't fallen down yet just means you haven't had an earthquake nearby yet. That your buildings did fine in Northridge says nothing unless you're in the western San Fernando Valley. You at some point will be getting that earthquake, and you can do something about it, but you're going to have to choose to make it worthwhile. And it's going to happen to a lot of you at the same time. You know, if it's the Newport Inglewood, you've got Beverly Hills and Culver City and all down through the South Bay being on top of the earthquake and really devastated. Everybody around you, you're going to have some damage. You would have been considered the really bad case unless they were worse, except that they were worse. And our regional economy is going to suffer. So back to this all do it together. I realized I put out of order, this was the one that I did want to put into you here, is to see, here's where the fault is. The color of here is called the shake map. It's the level of damage that you get, right? So Ridgecrest actually isn't the worst damage. Ridgecrest, you know, it's China Lake that really gets it. And now imagine we take that and put that down into the LA Basin. And you realize what we're all going to be going through. The last thing I did want to mention, and I didn't bring back my little numbered list, but it's just about mapping the faults. The geologists are in heaven. They're out there mapping all of these different strands. And, you know, when it's only like once every 10 or 20 years in your career that this shows up, you know, you run and you get the data. There are a lot of fault traces that are showing up. So we sit here and we can say, oh, the Raymond Fault, that runs through the Ritz-Carlton and the old mill, right? It's up there. Well, if we get the sort of splaying that they saw here when the Raymond Fault goes, we could be having the faults coming actually through. Now, it doesn't mean you can put in an Office Priola Act and say, don't build right here, but you sure should be thinking about how strong your buildings are, because every one of us has a fault in our city. And we're all in this together. So what can you do? Right? There's a lot of actions you can take on earthquakes. In the end, though, what we're talking about is the resilience of our communities. And after I've just told you all this, and we can get to questions, I have to say, if you deal with this, but you don't deal with climate change, you haven't made yourself a resilient city. One thing about leaving the government, I have more freedom to really look at fields outside of exactly what I was trained in. And my son's a climate scientist now. He's in graduate school. I'm very proud of him. We were having a discussion, and he said, Mom, you know, I think the more you learn about earthquakes, the less frightening they are. And I think, you know, that's right. I mean, I really understand them and I stay here, right? If you really learn what's going on, you realize that the freeway's a far more dangerous thing than the fault. Right? And then he said, but you know, the more I learn about climate science, the more frightening it is. And what could happen to us if we don't stop the carbon production is going to dwarf anything that the earthquakes could do. So we need to figure out how to work on them together. One of the things I've come to believe is the way we deal with it is by having stronger communities. That when you look and see what happens to communities in disasters, it's the ones with high social capital, the ones where people are really connected to each other that are able to come back. So every time you do this, you're connecting around the community, among the government. That's really important. We're starting a effort in my center to connect community organizations that want to do something about resilience. Don't just get stronger yourself, get stronger with others. Don't make emergency preparedness an isolating process where you protect yourself. Make it a process where you work with your community to really help each other. Because we are all in this together. And the only way we're getting through it is because we work together, not just on earthquakes, but about everything that's coming to face us. Thank you. Cover today, and if you want to come talk to John Bory, we'd love to have you come as our guest. Okay, that's tomorrow night. Yes, I can take questions now.
Questions?
Do you see any correlation between earthquakes and landslides, like miles per survey?
Oh, earthquakes and landslides, absolutely. When we modeled the shakeout earthquake, our estimate was about 10 to 100,000 landslides would be triggered by that event. So an earthquake sets off landslides. It's one of our catch-22s. If we have it during fire season, it sets off lots of fires, and that's actually the scariest one. If you have it during the rainy season, then you set off a lot more landslides. So choose which one you want to deal with. But landslides do not cause earthquakes because they are a shallow feature. Earthquakes happen 5 to 10 miles down into the earth, or that's where they begin at least. So a landslide cannot set off an earthquake, but absolutely earthquakes set off landslides. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, you remember. Yeah.
Hi, I'm born and raised in Southern California, so I've been through a few earthquakes. And especially the Northridge earthquake out in Santa Clarita scared the heck out of me. So the earthquake app, I put it on my phone, of course, and when the Ridgecrest earthquake hit, I was perfectly happy that that didn't go off. But then I guess several people made complaints that they thought, well, why wasn't I notified of that? So you lowered the threshold. Now, for someone who's scared to death of earthquakes, if that thing goes off, I'm going to be totally scared to death at a 5.0, which isn't going to really affect me that much. I heard you talking about maybe figuring out how to do something, Mayor, with that. I wish you would, because I don't want to be notified of a 5-point-something earthquake. I only want to be notified of a 7-point-something that is really going to impact me. So hopefully you can do something about that.
Let me say a couple of things and then ask Eric to follow through. Number one, the magnitude doesn't matter. What matters is your intensity. You could be in a magnitude 5.5 and scared to death because it's directly underneath you. Right? So really what matters is the level of shaking that you perceive. And that's what matters. So that's the intensity. I also have absolutely no say anymore. I am now a private citizen. I don't work for the government, so I don't have to take credit or blame for the choices they made. I strongly believe that the app should have a couple of options and potentially give you a choice. Do you want to know about the small ones? But think of the advantage when you start feeling a shaking, if you've already been told it's not going to be that bad. Okay? Because isn't that the thing, when you start feeling that earthquake and you go, oh my God, is this it? Is this? Oh no, okay, that wasn't that bad, right? Imagine 5 seconds before, weak shaking's coming, or enjoy the ride, right? And actually, experience in Japan, in the Tokyo, after the big earthquake in 2011, they set up early warning long before we did because they have many more earthquakes and were willing to pay for it. And they had 1 million downloads of the app in the month after the earthquake. And the reason was people, because they were having magnitude 5s all the time. It was a magnitude 9. So they were feeling earthquakes all the time. And they had already gotten a warning saying this isn't going to be that bad. And it was that psychological reassurance that people, they said was the biggest benefit to having the app. It also gives you, if you only wait till when there's strong shaking, by the time you actually get a warning, you're going to have forgotten what the sound was.
Yeah, I think Lucy covered most of it, but there's good points. It wasn't just that people wanted to like show off to their friends that something's coming, but they want to know, because you have to remember, if you felt something even now and you hate earthquakes, you're not going to 100% trust any app, right? That it's like for sure not a big one. But if an app is communicating rather than not communicating with you and giving you information to reassure you that it's not, we're looking at different sounds. We have to program this all in. So remember when we were in El Segundo, we had the makers of it. AT&T won the contract. They're programmers. It works on all networks and it works through the internet, of course. But it will, hopefully in the future you can set, if you don't want those notices at all, and those who say, look, we'll just keep it at that lower level, have 2 different kinds of alerts. Like, different sound, different whatever. But knowledge is kind of power to be able to reassure people. And if we do have the series of earthquakes that could hit all at once, it will make people not just be living in panic.
Well, if there's a way to differentiate between...
Yeah,
yes.
And that's where we're working with the programmer. So right now it's just lower, so they're all the same. Hopefully, they said maybe 2 or 3 months we'll be able to pick that, or even have a lever in the future and you say what level you want to be notified at.
Yes, ma'am.
I have 2 questions. The first one is, I recall that some time ago there was a question about the appropriation of funding for installation of adequate earthquake sensors so that you can provide the notice. Where in your mind are we with respect to that? The second question is, you referenced the much stronger building codes in Japan and how they are so much better able to withstand damage because of the strength of their building codes. Where are we on that? How can we advocate for the development and the implementation of much stronger building codes in California?
Okay, thank you. So there's, let me see, a couple of questions. One is, where's the funding for the network and the early warning? I sort of want to punt on this. Government funding of government agencies is so dysfunctional at this point. It's hard to say where it is. In fact, this year, there's a big slug of money that came in that they're scrambling to try and spend. And the biggest problem is sort of because you don't know until halfway through the fiscal year that you're getting this slug of money, and now you've got to spend it before contracts close, so you got like a 2-month window. It's not allowing the sort of planning that would make for the best system. But right now the money is coming in. It's never in the president's budget, but it's not like the president's budget means much at this point in this very dysfunctional process. So basically, those problems are way above my pay grade and not directly related to earthquakes. On building codes, that's a much more direct thing, and that's something we do here in California. When you look at what's a safe building, there are 2 separate things. One is existing buildings that have problems. One is what we're doing with new buildings. Right? Existing buildings with problems, that is local. That is what has your city chosen to do to mandate it. Because a building owner can't get up and move his building somewhere else because he doesn't like the fact that you mandated retrofitting. And it doesn't matter to